Hi, so I am gonna try this video. This is probably my 5th attempt, and it's really annoying because I have to do it on my phone, so the quality's not that good. And then I had people like texting me and it would stop the video, so I think I've solved that problem. I don't know. So, and there's also a thunderstorm outside, so if the power goes out or if it's really noisy, that's what's happening. But my husband's working late and I thought this was a good time to try the video, and I couldn't wait until I got a camera, so I'm gonna try it. Anyways, so basically this is gonna be like my fertility story thus far. It all kind of starts, so my husband and I, we met each other in elementary school, and so we've known each other since elementary school. Back then we were kind of polar opposites. You know, I was more like artsy, creative, and he was kind of a jock and kind of a jerk, but I had a thing for him, and we dated back then. And I say that because, like, use that term very loosely, because when you're young you think like, I don't know, you think it's like so serious, but it's not. But I told my mom back then, I said basically that I'm going to marry that boy, and kind of happened the way I predicted. So we reconnected back in high school, and we were working at the same restaurant, so we started dating again, and kind of, and that's also my dog. If you hear a bark, that is my little puppy who does not want to be in her crate right now because she wants to see what I'm doing. So I apologize for that too. She'll be out soon, but she's freaking out right now. So anyways, we like, I'm all over the place. But anyway, so so when we started dating, it was kind of around the same time that the beginning of all this like testing and stuff for kind of what was wrong with me happened. So basically, back it up a bit, when I was 12, I got my first period. And I got one period, and then I didn't get another one for another year. That kind of happened from 12 until 15, when I started dating my husband, and I also went to my first like specialist appointment. So it was like once a year, twice a year maybe, and it was almost like when I would get a period, it was like all of the periods that I hadn't got kind of combined into one. I'd have it for like 8 to 10 days. It would be really bad, painful, and I could basically not do anything because I was just bedridden, kind of curled up in the fetal position. It was so bad. And my mom kind of thought like I had PCOS, but you know, she was just doing her mothering Googling thing, and nothing was ever like official. So I had an ultrasound, I think I had some blood work, and I went to a specialist when I was 15 who basically said, you know, it's not completely normal what you're experiencing, but at the same time you're so young, so we'll just put you on some birth control, and that will regulate you and you'll be fine. So I went on birth control, and it kind of worked out because at the time I went on birth control, it was also around the time that I needed contraceptive. So I was on birth control for 4 years, from 15 to 19, where I decided myself to go off of it for a little while. And it was a kind of a bunch of things of why I wanted to go off of it. One of those things was because I had really bad side effects with birth control, like most people do. I gained a lot of weight. I was really, really moody, depressed, and all this other stuff. And I know some people are like, you can't blame like all your weight or all this stuff on birth control. And I'm not, but with the PCOS too, which at the time I wasn't for sure that I had it, it didn't make it easy to have, you know, extra hormones and everything like that in your system. So I went off of it, and which was kind of silly because I didn't know, like I thought like I could have got pregnant, you know, that's what I thought. we weren't necessarily preventing, and it was kind of a risky thing to do, but we were just kind of going with the flow. But in the 9 months that I was off of birth control, I didn't get one period, and I did multiple pregnancy tests because I always thought, oh, I'm pregnant, and they were all negative. So I'm kind of glad I did that in one sense. I guess it was risky, but at the same time, because I did that, we were able to get a diagnosis at a younger age versus a lot of people have to wait until they're a lot older to figure out they have this. So the day I went and got diagnosed, I went to see a specialist, an OBGYN who specialized in fertility. And she basically said there's 5 indicators for PCOS, and you have to have about 3 of the 5 to officially have it. So I think one of the indicators was my abnormal ultrasound. Another one was the weight, so like hard to lose weight. And the third one was the irregular periods. I didn't have the excess hair, even though I swore I did. But she's like, no, you have peach fuzz. That's not what kind of the excess hair that we're talking about. And then I think another one is acne. And to be fair, at that time, I did not have acne. I had really clear skin when I was a teenager, but I was also on birth control. So I don't know if like that kind of hid what my skin could have been like, because all my teenage years, I only got like a period once, or a pimple like once in a blue moon. Like I had pretty good skin. It wasn't until my 20s that I started to have more breakouts and more frequently. So, and to the weight thing too, a lot of the time with people that have PCOS, they first think it's a thyroid issue. So they check your thyroid. So that's what they did for me too. And because usually they think that you have an underactive thyroid because your weight just kind of stays. It doesn't really go up. It doesn't necessarily go down. It kind of just stays. So I would be at a weight and I'd be like, oh, I need to lose weight. Like I hate like the way I feel. I hate my body. So I would completely cut out all junk food. I would start running or jogging or walking or do stuff like that. And my weight wouldn't really budge. It wouldn't really do anything. So it turned out my thyroid was fine, obviously. And then we found out I had PCOS, but that's one of the things they check for is your thyroid. So anyways, the specialist actually told me, she said that if I wanted to get pregnant in a year, I wouldn't have to get referred again, and I could just come to her, and I would most likely have to go on fertility drugs. So at that time, at that age, I was not even not thinking about having a baby. That was not even on the radar. Like I knew I wanted to have kids one day, but I was too young. So she said the other option is that if you're not ready to have a baby right now, you should go back on birth control, which was kind of annoying to hear because I hated being on birth control. But she said that it's not even to do with like to prevent pregnancy. It's to do with the fact that when you have PCOS, your hormones are constantly imbalanced. You have a constant imbalance going on in your system. So if you're not on anything to kind of balance that, then you have a higher risk of cancer and cervical cancer, to be like specific. My mom had cervical cancer after she had me. So I already was worried about that kind of stuff. My sister had a fibroid tumor in her uterus when she was 17. It was benign, but still, there was always funky things happening in my family with that kind of stuff. So I don't want to risk it anymore. And so I went back on birth control. I went on all the way up until... So back on at 19 until 22, because 22 is when my husband and I got married, October 18, 2014. So tomorrow is actually our 2-year wedding anniversary, which some people are like, oh, you guys are still in the honeymoon period. It's like, no, we've been together for 9 years. We are way past the honeymoon period. But anyways, so... in November 1st of 2014, right after our wedding, is my first day of no birth control. I completely went off of it, and I went to the doctors, and I said, because my husband and I had discussed, we knew that because of my diagnosis and because of what we read is that it would be hard to have a baby, and we knew that we wanted to start trying like, we always said, like, I wanted to be pregnant when I was like 24, 25. My sister had her baby, or started having her babies at 25. And I mean, my mom was younger, but I always thought that was like the magic age. So we told the doctor, like, we're not, I'm going to go off birth control. Like, what else do you recommend? And obviously they say, like, oh, folic acid and prenatals. And but because my doctor had known about my diagnosis and everything, he said that normal couples, I tell them about a year, and that's kind of a general thing across the board. Like, it's about a year trying to conceive, and if nothing happens, then you're referred to a fertility specialist or whatever the case may be, and you start to investigate why is this not happening. But because we already knew what I had, he said 6 months, 6 months trying to conceive. In 6 months, if you guys do not conceive, then I'll be referring you to a specialist. So in those 6 months, my husband kind of went back and forth on, like, I think he was more scared. I don't know if this is a guy thing, a man thing, even though we had previously discussed that this is what we want, like, we just wanted to go off of it and just kind of see what happens. He still was a little, like, I think, nervous for if it did happen. And I was on the other side of it, kind of thinking, like, at first I was so optimistic, and then I was thinking, wow, like, each month, I wouldn't have anything. I wouldn't have a period. I wouldn't obviously be getting pregnant. And I wasn't tracking anything, but then again, there was nothing to track. Like, women go off of things like their basal body temperature, or their cervical mucus, which is TMI, but, like, they go off of things like that because then they can pinpoint, like, ovulation, or they know when they're having ovulation pains, and etc. I didn't know that kind of stuff because I never had an ovulation to really go off of, like, not that I know of. So in those 6 months, we had fun because we were just married. So, we just went with the flow, and nothing happened. So I think it wasn't even at exactly 6 months. It was 7 months I had another appointment. And this time I saw, like, my doctor's colleague who, he's really young and not that experienced in bedside manner. So basically it told me that we weren't trying hard enough. And even though he saw right there on my records, like, what I have and what my doctor had said, was his plan, he was like, he actually said to me, it's like you signed up for a 30K marathon, and 20K in, you give up and you get in a taxi. And that was probably the first kind of little bit of hearing things like that from people, like, just different comments, like, oh, you're so young, like, you have so much time, like, or, like, you just need to not try, and that's when it's going to happen. You just need to not even worry about it and stuff. And all these, like, all this unwarranted advice from people which usually comes from a place of love, but sometimes it just comes out really rude. And when you don't understand a person's struggle or what they're going through, then you really shouldn't comment, because every woman in their experience in trying to have a baby or pregnancy or being a mother, it's all different. Everyone's story is different. So, and you know what? I hadn't even, like, back then, it might have been okay. Like, it was probably okay to hear, like, oh, like, you guys just started trying, like, because we kind of did just start trying. But now we're almost at 2 years. So, I mean, if someone says that to me now, it takes a lot for me to, like, hold in what I really feel. So anyways, I was just kind of devastated after talking to that doctor. And so I called my doctor's office back and I said, I want to talk to my regular doctor. I refused to see that doctor. And I went in and talked to my regular doctor, and he said, I'm referring you today to a specialist. So I was referred to not necessarily a fertility specialist at first. I was referred to an OBGYN who kind of dabbled, I guess you could say, in fertility stuff. So a really busy OBGYN too. Like, him and his wife, they share a practice, and like I heard really good things about them, but then I also heard like the waits could be really long because they like have so many women that they take care of there. But I absolutely adored that doctor. He never once made me feel like we were too young or that it was all about weight, because that was another thing. People would always say like, well, you know, if you just lose weight, it's like, I know what I need to do. Like, I don't need your advice. And also, even when I was skinnier, I was not ovulating. Like back when I was 12 to 15, like I was not ovulating by myself. Like I was having periods on birth control, but that's not even real periods. So, yeah, the doctor never made it about that. He said, like, that's not my concern. My concern is why are you not ovulating, and to get you to ovulate. So before I went on any kind of fertility drugs, he did it the right way. I had more ultrasounds. I had blood work. My husband did a semen analysis, and which was so fun for him. And I had an HSG x-ray, which I read and watched lots of videos on HSG x-rays, and a lot of people like saying how incredibly painful it was, and it was like the worst experience of their whole life, and everyone's pain tolerances are different. So all I can say about that is that if you're going to have to do an HSG x-ray, do not read into that kind of stuff so much, because mine, I mean, it was uncomfortable, and afterwards it was like, I'll probably post another video just specifically on that, but all I can say is that it was uncomfortable, but it wasn't like the worst pain I've ever felt in my entire life. Like, most definitely not. And I do have a higher pain tolerance, but still, I don't know. People make things a little crazy, and they, you know, but there's no need to be so scared, because if you want to have a baby, I think that you need to be able to do an HSG x-ray, because childbirth, regardless if you have a vaginal natural delivery or you have a C-section or whatever the case is, it's going to be painful. So you kind of have to get used to pain, I would say. So anyways, I had that, and the results of everything were, yes, I have PCOS. We already knew that. My HSG, that one is kind of confusing, because the doctor there said, like, my tubes were open, my tubes were clear. Like, that's basically what they want to know. They want to see that your tubes are clear. There's no blockages. There's no cysts. There's no, you know, there's nothing that's going to prevent pregnancy. And they also look for the shape of your uterus. During that, I told my husband, like, later, I said, like, just recently, I said, I swear, because this was almost 2 years, like, no, this was a year ago. I said, I swear the doctor then kind of said something about a heart-shaped uterus, and then kind of brushed it off, and said, like, everything was fine. So, and that's going to come, like, there's importance to that. So, yeah, but I mean, at the time he said, everything's good, everything's clear, like, you're set to go, you're set to start fertility drugs. And then my husband's analysis came back, and I mean, like, come on, like, I called him at work because he couldn't come to the appointment, and to tell him the results, and the doctor basically had said that he was above average. So I should have never said that he was above average, because as soon as I said that, it went straight to his head. Like, he had such a big ego, I think, because of it, because he was deep down worried. I think that most guys, like, they don't really think about that kind of stuff. And then when it comes time to actually testing their manhood, which, I mean, I say that because, like, I say that, you know, not being real about that, because manhood isn't about that. But to a guy, like, when they go and they do that test, like, they don't want to act like they're really worried about it, but deep down I think they are, and I think my husband was. So he did that, and it came back fine. Like, I think most I don't know, like, articles and stuff like that I've read, they say like over 20 million is what they look for like, in order to conceive a baby, without having to go to more drastic measures such as like IVF. And my husband's count was 150 million. So that's why the doctor was like, he's fine. It's just me. So yeah, that's awesome. But at least it's actually better, because it's a lot easier to deal with women, like a woman infertility issue, than say it was me and him, because that would have just brought a whole bunch of more problems. And I know a lot of women who have both male and female factor infertility, and I see the struggles they go through, and my heart goes out to them because I know how hard it is just from my point of view, but I couldn't imagine for both. Like it's really, it's kind of like not fair, but that is just a whole nother thing. So, we were good to go is basically the point. So we started on Clomid, which is like your first that's like the first line treatment, like Clomid or Femara. But we started on Clomid, and I did one cycle of the lowest dose. That was my starting, the 50 milligrams. And this is the only thing that I didn't like about my specialist that I realize now. During my cycles of Clomid, I did 4 with him. There was no monitoring, ultrasounds, or blood work besides the day 23 progesterone and then my beta HCG, which was actually on a cycle day 45. Like that's how he did it. It was like 45-day cycles. And I don't know if that was so that when I went in for the blood test, it was the most accurate on if I got pregnant or not. But that's like a month and a half of your time. So each cycle is not a month. Each cycle is a month and a half. Like, it's almost 2 months. So, I did 4 rounds of that with my doctor, and I don't know this for certain because there's no way to actually tell, but my first cycle kind of fell around Christmas, and a part of me really thinks that I did get pregnant in January of 2016, January of this year. I had some just spontaneous like mid-cycle and as in like it was in like the 20s, I guess you could say, like in the cycle day 20 something. I had just like mid-cycle bleeding, and it was not normal bleeding. It was not spotting. It was like probably the worst period I've ever had. And TMI, but I was clotting, and I was just so weak, and I went to work, I remember, and my coworkers were like, "You do not look good." And I'm like, "I do not feel good. I don't want to be here, but I am here." And I actually went home a little early that day, and I just went into bed, and my husband came home, and he was so worried about me because I had been telling him, this is what's happening. I called my doctors. They said, if that is what it is, which kind of sounds like it might be like an early miscarriage, there's no way for us to know because the HCG would already be out of your blood. And there's nothing you can really do for it except for just wait it out. Let it happen. Let nature take its course. So I wasn't too devastated or upset by that, because if I had like taken a test and found out I was pregnant and then something like that had happened, I think I would have been more devastated. But because there was so much unknown and unsure of if that was what it was, then I was just kind of like annoyed, if anything, but not like upset, I guess. But, stuff like that happens. My mom has had, she always says she's had 5 children. My mom has 5. She's very fertile, but she's had 4 miscarriages. So, and I was a teenager for like 2 or 3 of those. So I saw like what an actual like experience of a miscarriage was. And my mom is one of the strongest people I've ever met for multiple reasons. But that is also another thing where I saw her strength. Like, she had to take care of, at that time it was four of us kids. Well, my older sister, she's 6 years older than me, so she wasn't at the house, like living at home anymore. But, she had to take care of her kids and just, I guess, woman up and get through it. And she did end up having my brother after those miscarriages. So it's like a good thing came out of all that, but still so sad. And so anyways, this is becoming a really long video, and I am so sorry for that. But because this is on my phone, I don't even know how to edit it. I will learn that kind of stuff eventually, I think. But anyways, to wrap this part up, I did 3 other rounds after that first round with that doctor on Clomid, and it became like almost like each month I knew I wasn't pregnant. I knew that it hadn't worked. And it wasn't that I was necessarily negative. I had to think that way because when I first started, like the first couple of rounds, I was really optimistic and I was really like, oh, I'm on fertility drugs now. Like it has to work. Like this has to, like, this is going to work because this is like such a better chance. But again, I was still not getting ultrasounds. I wasn't even knowing like if I was responding to the medication, if my follicles were growing. I didn't know what cycle day I was ovulating. So basically what we were doing is we were doing timed intercourse from like, well, first the doctor said just like start at cycle day like 14 and do it every other day until like cycle day 18, 19. But we just extended it like to cycle day 12 and to day 19. So like, like we just weren't sure. And I didn't know like how to, like I did some like OPKs and stuff like that, but they were always negative. Like I never had good luck with them. So I didn't even think I was ovulating with it. I became kind of like negative because of it. I was just like, of course I didn't get pregnant. Of course this isn't working. So anyways, my last cycle was in this summer, July, I think, June or July. One of those. And the doctor did say that because he's not like a specific fertility doctor, he doesn't actually do like all the different fertility. Like he just does like oral medications. He doesn't do everything else. He said that after this 4th cycle, if it doesn't work, I'm going to refer you to a fertility clinic. So sure enough, I knew I wasn't pregnant, but August comes and I have my HCG beta testing and I go in and it's a negative. And so literally in the matter of, it was like a day that everything happened so quickly that I found out, like I went for my testing, I wasn't pregnant. There's a new fertility clinic that was opening up just like half an hour from where I live, which was a lot better than driving an hour, or hour and a half to a different fertility clinic. So I got referred and I got in really quick because it was a new fertility clinic. They had like 7 patients. So everything was really, really quick. And just like the receptionist there was she's just amazing. And she's more than just a receptionist. She actually is like the jack of all trades. So she, I got in so quick. And the next day, before you know it, was our consultation. So I'll go more into that kind of detail in another video because this is already like a 27-minute video. And I mean, I know me, I would probably watch this because I watched countless fertility trying to conceive videos, and I've watched really, really long ones, and I've just done laundry or done whatever and listened to it. But I'm not sure if everyone is as crazy as me. So I'll probably cut it shorter. But all I can say is that right now in our we're a couple weeks away from it being 2 years trying to conceive. At this point, I am in the 2-week wait actually from my potentially last cycle of Clomid. This is my 6th. I did one with the doctor this new doctor at the fertility clinic. I did a cycle of Clomid when I first first started there, and that cycle I was progressing great. This place you actually do monitoring blood work and ultrasounds, which takes up a lot of your time, but at least they can see what's happening. And I was really relieved to know that I do respond to Clomid, and my follicles were growing great. I did the trigger shot, and I'll do another video on that because I'd love to actually like explain the trigger shot more. But everything was like progressing the way it should be progressing, but I didn't get pregnant. So that was devastating, especially because I kind of convinced myself that I was pregnant. Like every symptom I was feeling, I was like, this time I knew for sure when I ovulated, like everything happened the way it should have happened, and I didn't get pregnant. And after that, I went for a 3D ultrasound, and they found out that in that ultrasound that I had a subseptate uterus. So basically a heart-shaped uterus. So your uterus has two parts. There's the outer part that is like a triangle, and then there's the inner part, which again is triangular. So yeah. And so it's two triangles, a bigger one and a smaller one. And basically the smaller one, so the inside on mine is not a triangle, and it's more of like a heart shape. It has like a dip in it. Then the doctor kind of casually said, so you know, you're probably going to need surgery. Minor surgery, outpatient surgery, everyone says no big deal, but I've never had surgery, so excuse me while I freak out for a little bit, because, you know, you're sticking something up there, and I don't know yet either if they're going to be cutting it or if they're going to be burning it, but I know that's two different ways, and either way scares the crap out of me, so basically the doctor said, I want to do that, but I want you to do one more round of Clomid. So that's what I have just done. I'm 2-week waiting it right now, and I made that a verb somehow. And it's a little different this time because I'm not so crazy optimistic or crazy like researching everything or, you know, any of that. I'm just going with the flow, and I know that you know, if it happens this time, then I guess it's meant to be. But if it doesn't, then I know that it's because I do need the surgery. And the doctor did say, like, tell me about the risk, like, in regards to carrying a pregnancy with the uterus I have now. And it's, you know, it's kind of scary, like preterm labor, early pregnancy loss. Like, I don't really want that. So in a way, I don't want to get pregnant until the surgery happens. And I will make a whole nother video in regards to my subseptate uterus and all those other things that I've had done. And but in the meantime, this is what it is right now. And I have to feed my dog, and I have to just get on with my night. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Like, again, it's on a cell phone, so I know it's not the best quality, but hopefully I'll be making more videos about my fertility journey so that I have something to look back on and kind of see where I was and then see where I am. So anyways, thanks for watching. Bye.